Hey, Megan, thanks for joining us today as we're getting started. Give us a little background on yourself.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I've been in sales now for a little over 10 years, all tech sales, and been in cloud and security for the last four.
You must like it, huh?
I do like it. I like the challenge of technology and that it's always changing. There's always something to learn.
And why sales for you?
I didn't think I was going to be in sales.
No.
No, somebody talked me into it. And then I really liked it. And I realized that it was the right thing for me because of my competitive nature, I guess you'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
And you've been at big companies mostly?
No, actually, I
Yeah.
went big company, publicly traded staffing firm for almost 8 years, and then a small startup, like 200-person company, and now security at Palo Alto Networks for over 10,000 people and publicly traded.
Yeah. And what fit you best, the startup or the big company?
I got, I was able to get cool things out of both of them.
Yeah.
The startup, I was able to learn a lot and be super agile and make tons of impact across product and the whole organization, operations, all of that. But I do like this size company that I'm at now because they really challenge you. It's so different, but it's fun.
And security is a hard space, isn't it?
But it's a great space. We need
It
it.
is. Yeah. There's always demand.
Yeah, especially with everything going on right now, with ransomware and all the crazy stuff geopolitically, it's something that's going to continue to be hot. And I specialize in cloud security, so organizations are continually moving to the cloud, so it's not going anywhere soon.
And what's the hardest part of it?
Hmm. To be honest, I think the hardest part is the delicate balance in your sale of not scaring customers too much. They know they need to do something. They know that they could be vulnerable, but you can't call their baby ugly, what they've created and built. But you have to be very delicate in, have you thought of these things? So I think that that's kind of one of the challenging things in this role.
And do you get inbound or do you have an existing customer base or is it a lot of prospecting? What's the territory look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm in strategic accounts. So I have some of the largest well-known brand names that are household names in New England, five customers. And then I've got two target customers that are white space that I need to break into.
Yeah. And how do you do that? Because,
Oh, that's the hardest part.
yeah,
That is seriously the hardest part of sales is signing that net new logo, in my opinion.
yeah.
And I think building the right plan and being pleasantly persistent, but also leveraging your network and the network of your peers at your organization is so important because these Fortune 50 companies, you're not going to get in by a cold call. You're going to get in by a very strategic level conversation.
And how do you arrange that? Is it through the networking? Yeah.
Yes. So, for example, what I did was I went on to LinkedIn and I looked at who some of our product leaders and senior executives were connected to at one of those white spaces accounts. Of course, they knew somebody. There was some connection there. So I was able to work with some of our executive admins to ghostwrite an email to get them to send it and start getting the conversation going. Like, oh, you're going to be at RSA, for example, which is a very popular security conference.
Yeah.
Let's meet for coffee there. So getting those meetings set up was so important to get us a foot in the door.
And does management buy into this? Because a lot of sales leaders is just make the calls and pound, pound, pound and knock the doors down.
So for the level of customer that I'm working with, absolutely.
Yeah.
I, I'm not sure that we would get in by just making a ton of cold calls at these customers. But also we have a very good product and our product speaks for itself and it's highly ranked with Forrester and Gartner. So it tends to be a little bit easier because I do work for a company with some great products.
And I sold security for a long time. And what you always
Okay.
run into is differentiation.
Yes.
right? Because we all use the word security, so everybody has security, but not enough security, right?
Yeah. I know. And so it's like, what do I buy for what? This company's telling me I need that. That company's telling me I need this, but what's actually important to the customer? That's what's so challenging. And so I think in order to differentiate ourselves, like from a product standpoint, I do rely on some of the research that we do and publish ourselves because we have a whole research team. So I can say, this is actually what we're finding in the market. But then I can also leverage what Forrester and what Gartner are saying as some of our differentiators from our competition. But to me, I have to know my competition really well. So we have a competitive team and I lean on them. I'm like, hey, can this competitor do this? Okay, no. So these are some of the questions that I have to ask this customer to kind of block out what I know my competitor is not strong with.
And do you go for the CISO, or do you go for somebody on the team, or do you go for operations? What's the entry point that's most effective for you?
Yep, that again, another good question. And it really depends on the organization. But we absolutely have to have CISO buy-in at all times.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do a 3-year large deal without a CISO signing off. The typical person that I'm working with is usually like a VP of data security or data governance or cyber, something along those lines. So that VP level is my like kind of intimate touch point, but we have to meet with the executives as well.
And how would you characterize your style of selling?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where I think it comes a mix of like, you have this great product, right? I'm
Yeah.
fortunate to work for a company that has a great product, but you also have to be super authentic and likable because people buy from people they like and kind of know how to give a little bit of yourself out without talking about yourself all the time, but just enough so that you can get the customer to open up about themselves so you can really start to build that relationship. I think that that's very important.
And is this something that you developed over time, or is it something you observed, or is it just your natural personality? How did you kind of come to this?
I mean, I like to please people, but I'm also not scared to have my own opinion. And something like I've reflected on is it's really comes down to confidence. And I look back when I was younger and, you're just like, oh, I'm so insecure. But when did I kind of get that confidence? Right. And I think about how I've developed the confidence, and I don't have to be right all the time. I can certainly be wrong, but having that humility in front of your customers, but also coming in with an opinion and being able to kind of read and gauge how they're taking that based upon their response and making small adjustments has really helped me.
And the confidence just build over time, or did it come through?
I think it builds over time.
Yeah.
Having confidence not only in your ability to sell, but kind of everything that you're doing in life is really important. But not being overconfident, right? Still having that humbleness about you.
Yeah, because I think people think that at some point in your career, you're not going to have the jitters or a little anxiety or a little doubt, or, imposter syndrome seems to be the famous word for it. But I still feel it, don't you? Right? Sometimes.
Like I've gone on stage to speak in front of, it was probably 800 to 900 people. Are you kidding? I was so scared and so jittery, but I was like, I need to practice. So I was, practicing in front of the mirror about what I was going to say. And I think pushing the limits that way and being uncomfortable, but knowing that you're going to be able to handle it because you've prepared has helped at least me build confidence.
And did the sports in college help with that? I got to imagine it would.
Yeah, yes, I think it did. I don't really quote unquote use my college degree today, but I use so much of what I learned in college in everyday life, just in terms of how to solve problems, how to lead, how to interact, how to be a better person. Really.
And why did you stick with sales? Did you like the competitiveness, the control over your income? What
I was
about
good
it?
at it.
You're good at it.
I liked it because I was good at it, right? People like to do things that they're good at.
Yeah.
Um, and I am competitive. I think it's really important to be, obviously, I'm a Patriots fan. I live in Boston. Um, but I think it's really important for me, at least, to try to always be the Tom Brady of the team. I want to bring others up around me because if they're better, that's only going to push me to be better. So if someone's like, they notice that maybe I did something that they liked and they want documentation from me on it, absolutely, let's share that. Because that only is going to elevate the team and it's going to elevate me.
And what do you get out of that? What do you like doing about it?
Oh, I love the recognition for, look what Meg created. That's so good. Like I love the recognition.
But you haven't moved into leadership, though, have you?
No, I haven't. It's always been something that has interested me, but I still feel like I have more to learn from an individual contributor standpoint. And like personally, I'm not ready to do that because I've got, 2 kids under 2.
Oh,
and I like the balance that I have now.
yeah. And what do you feel like you need to learn?
Honestly, the forecasting stuff I don't like to do. I need to get better at the financials and really understanding that piece of it. Right now, because I'm working for a public company, that is vitally important. And a huge part of what we do as sales is forecast what we're going to close in the next week, month, quarter, year.
And is that when you talk finance, on justifying the purchase, or is it on them issuing the purchase order to you, or both, or
them issuing the purchase order to us?
Yeah, is large amounts of money, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah. And how often are you close, or what makes you think you're off?
So it's tough, right? Because
It's
we're
really tough.
in a competitive market. So we're doing a proof of concept against a competitor. And we could have the technical win, but if we don't have the right financial package and our competitors 80% of what we can do and their financial package is extremely more like appetizing, much better, more competitive, they could take that.
Yeah.
So it's tough from the standpoint of how do I price externally and then also go back internally and fight for a price that I know I need in order to say confidently, like, this is my pipeline and this is going to close. And it's a highly competitive market. There's a lot of small startups kind of coming up through with high valuations.
And you guys are pretty big. I'm not that familiar with your segment of the space. Are you the gorilla in that space, or are you?
Yes.
You are. Okay.
Yeah. Palo Alto Networks was early on in recognizing the need for cloud security as there was a lot of growth in public cloud. So Microsoft and Amazon, when they started investing, Google, when they started investing it, they said, oh, we should go buy the best startups around and integrate them into a solution. And that's what they did.
And I got to imagine that your company would work to establish the C-level relationships on these big accounts to kind of help you.
Yeah, they definitely do. Because Palo Alto Networks was traditionally a firewall company and they still are. So they do have a lot of sound relationships at the C-suite in the Fortune 500. And that certainly helps us.
Yeah. And I got to imagine that getting the technical win, but communicating that independent of the economics is hard as it moves up.
Yes, because as it moves up,
people don't know what it is.
Like this is the economics of the deal.
Yeah.
But you have to get the technical win, otherwise
you're nowhere.
Yeah.
And have you been able to get the business win based off of intangibles, downtime, lost reputation, lost data, things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think the reason why we're able to win a lot is because we solve a lot of different use cases, and we're not just solving a unicorn use case.
Yeah.
So it's like a very much come with us because we're generalists, but we're also very good at being the generalist.
And what key things have you learned along the way? Because I'm sure you didn't come out of college with all this. Right. You had to have the confidence, kind of the personality skills. Were you ever the person who talked too much? You seem very paced.
I would say, I think what I like and learned the most kind of through selling was that I like constantly learning.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like the technology piece and being in technology, because it's always changing and there's always something more to learn and understand. And then that's what I think has really helped, because customers don't love only talking to salespeople. They really like talking to technical people. And while I'm not, nor will I ever be one of those developers or a person in product, I like it. So I think that innate curiosity in the technology has really helped.
And during that technical sale, are you able to hold your ground? Because I always looked at it, I was the interpreter between the engineer and the customer. The pre-sales people, they have their own language.
Yeah.
And they're not good with metaphors and analogies and stories. They're good with stats and standards and rolling their eyes and stuff. And the customer they go through the stage. First, they want to be comfortable that they have everything they need, but you have to put a crack in there. Well, you don't have this covered, and this is scary. And then you have to communicate why it's scary and how it's different. Are you able to do that, or is that?
So I'm able to get technical to a point and really link the business outcomes to the technology and how we support their business outcomes. And then I love to just brush off my staffing experience and make sure that I always have a really good either pre-sales engineer, solution architect, whatever the term is that you're using, so that I have that right technical person. And I'm always looking for someone who's highly technical for me to work with, because I don't feel like I need someone on the technical side to have that connection right to the business outcomes. Like I can do that.
Yeah. And how did you learn all that? Because security is pretty hard to learn.
Oh, it's so hard.
Right. It's all these acronyms and numbers and
so much, all these standards. So at Clear Data, I just remember sitting down and having these people whiteboard for me, and then taking some online courses. But I learned so much just by sitting in on our product webinars.
Yeah.
And once you have the foundation, it's a lot easier to kind of connect the dots. At least for me, I've always been more of a math and science person.
And when you talk to other salespeople, what do you see them either doing wrong or missing, or if they only develop this skill that would really take their game to the next level?
So I know exactly kind of what you're saying in terms of different people have different strengths.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so I have a very dear friend who's an amazing seller and has such great presentation skills and is so good at developing those C-suite relationships. And so, but her weakness is she doesn't really understand the technology. And so I'm like, okay, I really do strive to understand the technology and understand what I'm selling, but she's so good at what she does that on the right account, it's perfect for her.
Yeah.
Where I don't think I command the room as well as she does. I certainly can, and I can certainly have those conversations, but she's like 100% and maybe I'm 95. So I'll see some people who aren't as strong technically, and but that they're compensating because they're stronger elsewhere. So there's compensating factors. And then I will see people who are just nitty gritty and they dial for dollars. And
The grinders,
they just don't care if people say no, and they don't do any research ahead of time. They just go, 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 because eventually the numbers are going to work. And so there's people who are way less strategic, and they just would rather outwork everyone and be, kind of pounding the phones, but not pounding the phones today. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Great. Much activity.
They work on, 100 tiny deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you work towards your strengths, it sounds like, and also I understand learning the technology must give you that confidence as well.
Yeah, you're right. That does give me a lot of confidence, because if I can speak confidently and the customer knows that I get it, then they'll open up more to me and they'll trust me. And building that trust is important.
Yeah, because I've been the pre-sales person with that first sales rep that you described, and she was amazing. She'd get us upgraded to first class. We'd go to a trade show. We'd have dinner with all these C-level people. She knew nothing about the product, had no interest in the product, didn't want to learn anything about it. And, she just pointed at me when they had a question. And it works. But then when I became the salesperson, I was just the opposite. I knew the product, but I didn't. So I dragged my CEO with me at the end of the quarter.
Help me close this.
Right. So I think the key thing is to know your weaknesses.
Yes.
And augment it with your team.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. I know that I'm not the best at negotiations of contracts. I can take all the notes. I can line up my legal team, their legal team, our leadership, and their leadership. But that is not a strength. And I like to bring people in because I like to please people too much. I don't like to get people mad. And in negotiations, they can get very, very tense.
Yeah.
Especially around when I was at Clear Data Business Associate Agreements for healthcare data. I was like, oh, this is not fun. Who owns the responsibility?
Well, what were the kind of key things that you learned along the way that really took your game to the next level?
Just always be the student.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always want to learn. That helps you take your game to the next level.
And what did you learn about the large deal? Because you're clearly doing big deals now, and they're very different
They're very different. You're either a hero or a zero. So you have to have so much confidence and precision in the work that you're doing in order to be in that hero role.
And how do you prevent it from getting stuck? Because I got to imagine, certainly with security, because it's not revenue generating, it can get deprioritized.
Yes, you're right.
Right. Regardless of how well you did on the technical side.
How do you prevent it from getting stuck? Well, unfortunately for organizations, fortunately for me, there continues to be security incidents at these organizations that are publicly available because they have to post them when it comes to HIPAA data or PCI data. And so you can see that, but also the relationships that you develop across the different levels of the organization. You get wind of what's going on. For example, crypto mining, right? Bitcoin is huge, but you need a ton of compute power to mine. And so I may hear of one of my customers that has a crypto mining incident. And then I know when I go in how to position my conversation. So if things are slowing down, then I can usually reignite them by staying relevant to where some of their pain points are without digging in the knife and turning it.
Right.
Yeah, just poking the bear a little bit. Tends to help us get things moving.
Yeah. And how do you plan a call like that? Because I'm sure you just can't wait to pull out the paper.
I know. It's so hard because like I said, people buy from people they like.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get them mad by them not by again calling the baby ugly or telling them that they were bad at something. So it's so important to plan the role of each person on the call. I actually like to have the technical person point out, this is how we would solve for X, this is how we would solve for Y. And usually it's the second or third thing that we talk about that I know is the pain point, and it's very black and white as to what our solution does to solve that problem. I'm trying to take the emotion out of it and just focus on the technology part, versus, tell me, why didn't you buy this from me last year? I told you this is going to happen.
And what do you think most security salespeople don't get about selling security?
No one wants to pay for it, like you said, because they don't realize that it doesn't actually enable their business.
Right. It's like an insurance policy in some cases.
Yeah, and
who likes preventative insurance?
Yes, and who likes insurance? And so I think it's a lot of salespeople have a hard time rationalizing to the customer why the price is justifiable, because it's expensive.
Yeah. And what skill would really take your game to the next level if you perfected it? Is it that C-suite conversations, or?
So like I can certainly have them, but where I think I need the most work is really understanding the financials and the forecasting, and then upping my game on the negotiation piece of the dollars and cents and contracts with customers. If I could do those two things, then I would feel really confident about, moving up into leadership, because I could have that well-rounded background to help where my sales reps need help.
And how do you stay out of the traps of these large deals? Because they take time. There's large time gaps in between conversations. You don't want to go too far, too fast.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I am kind of a big proponent of plans. And so getting the customer to buy into that proof of concept plan and tell them, kind of be a little bit vulnerable to them, like, hey, this is the path forward that I see in order to get to a purchase. And do you agree with this? Yes or no? And then I usually have a shared document with my customers. And so if 9 times out of 10, they miss their dates that they've agreed upon. And so then I'll say, hey, we had talked about this being important to you on this date because of X, Y, Z. And so it's not always perfect, but having that plan ahead of time and allowing them to give feedback and buy-in has helped me.
And when you listen to other reps, either at QBR or just chatting with them, what gives you the sense that the deal's either going to close or not close?
Oh, yeah. If they need it to close too much, then they'll have a number up there. But when management starts to ask them questions to get under the covers, they get defensive. Whenever any little bit of defensiveness comes up, it's like, okay, you're insecure about this deal. But if someone is open and honest, tells the facts, and is not defensive, that's when you know that they've got a good grasp and you know what they're saying is accurate.
Yeah. And do you ever get secure about a deal until it closes?
Oh, I absolutely get insecure about deals, like until the second they close. So I'm doing everything possible to make sure it closes, like everything. And accelerating the deal is so important, because if there's time, then the competitor can swoop right in and just give me a week to do a POC. Then that week turns into 30 days, and then that turns into 60 days. So, always trying to get it to go faster, which is tough because I don't want to make my customer mad and I don't want to push them to move before they're able to or willing to. But at the same time, I need to do that to ensure that we win. So it's that kind of healthy balance of keeping them happy with me, but getting them to move.
And how do you get the business people involved at the right time? Because in security, like anything, they kind of want to pigeonhole you. And you got somebody saying, I'm the final decision maker, even though I have zero budget authority.
Yeah, I hear you. So, from my side, that makes me think about application owners, the ones who are building the apps that their consumers or their customers are using, and the impact of those applications being vulnerable. So it can be very hard to get to the business owner. Uh, but at the end of the day, if they're the one providing the money, that person is going to have to go to them. And that's where I say, I want to that technical or security person, I want to help you make the business understand why this is so important. And a lot of times I'll try to work with them to build that use case of why this is valuable and why we need to do it so that they can deliver it, not me. They can deliver it to the business person. So try to empower the technical people, and then bring me in to meet the business people when necessary. It's
Great.
kind of how I go about it.
Cool. Hey, Megan, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Oh, on LinkedIn.